going to sound bad. I feel like 300,000.
I would have to say 127.
Probably 150 to $250,000 a year.
$500,000. Is that bad?
150, maybe to 250,000 a year would be comfortable for sure.
I was just having this conversation with my friend, and she was like, you have to manifest a husband, girl. Ideally, my husband needs to be making like 650,000.
So you said you want 500K, but what do you think the median income is for a 30-year-old?
60K? 70K?
It is $45,000.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I think it's 250,000.
It's 52,000.
What? No, it's not.
Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Making a Case. We're on episode 216, 217. Let me get it right. I'll get back to you on that. Glad to have you back. Thank you for tuning in. Can you guess what we're talking about in this episode? I'm pretty sure you can. We're talking about unrealistic dating preferences, dating standards. And no, it's not just focused on women, but of course, when it comes to dating standards, we know that women dating standards are all over the place. Pretty crazy, right? As you can tell with the beginning video for this particular video, right? So let me say this when it comes to unrealistic dating standards and why I feel like that pretty much it is ruining or keeping a lot of people single, right? Is because a lot of times, like, numbers are very important, right? Because I often say that if someone gave you a probability of, say, that you have a 20% chance of getting into a certain college, right? Now, it's not going to make you not apply to that college, but it is going to temper your expectation of you getting into that college because you already know up front that you only got a 20% chance. Okay. So knowing the numbers and their reality is very important, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times I always say it's two things, right? Or two different topics. When it comes to dating and religion, a lot of people are delusional. And it kind of just is what it is, right? We like to think that we can just have whoever we want or get away with whatever we want to and everything be okay. But unfortunately, based on the results that a lot of us see when it comes to dating, that's not the case. Dating and religion or any other topic operates in the functionality of any other topic, right? It's a give or take, right? We're talking about duality here. So at the end of the day, reality is going to set in, right? When we talk about the sexual marketplace or the sexual market value, the SMV that you have, that is a real thing, whether you agree with it or not. I just did a short on this the other day. Okay. Follow me on Instagram. My handles are in the description. Okay. Facebook, TikTok, all that. Right. So when we look at modern dating in particular, we have to understand that things are going to operate a little differently because there's a difference between what you want versus what you need. And there's also a difference between what reality is versus what you feel like you are, right? Because unfortunately, particularly with a lot of women, they feel like they're more than what they really are. All right. And we see this a lot of time because even your most average woman feel like that she can pull a top tier man, right? When it comes to men, your most basic average man, he just understand that, hey, it is what it is. He gonna get a 5 or a 6, and he'll be happy to rock with that for the rest of his life. But unfortunately, with women, it's not the same thing. Okay, so in this video, what we're going to talk about is how these unrealistic dating standards are actually leading us to being by ourselves. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it.
high standards doesn't mean that you have a low barrier of entry. I think we deal with this singledom culture due to these 5 areas. And these 5 areas would be dating app culture, hyper independent, delayed milestones, economic factors, and just really high standards. And then obviously, which I will kind of get into a little bit more, is like the higher standards. Now, high standards doesn't mean that you have a low barrier of entry. I always say boundaries are about understanding what you need, but a boundary doesn't mean you build a wall. You move and reassert boundaries for people if they show worthiness, if they show potential, or if they show the ability to try to meet you where you're at. Now, high standards doesn't mean that you have a low barrier of entry.
And I'll be honest with you. He could have been a little bit more direct, right? He was trying to tiptoe around it. Let's just be real, right? High standards means that you cut off a vast majority of people, right? Whether that you're a man or a woman, right? Because you feel like you deserve there's a threshold when it comes to finances, when it comes to how somebody dress, et cetera, right? That's going to be a small population of people, right? So, but here's the key. The key is that do you fit in that population? Now, if you fit in that population, I don't think people have a problem with that, right? If you fit in that population when it comes to income, when it comes to how you carry yourself, your dress, your character and things of that nature, nobody has a problem with that, right? But the problem becomes when that you have these high expectations, high standards when you don't meet that threshold, right? That is the problem. And unfortunately, because of social media and of course of things that we hear outside our sphere, right? Meaning that outside of our comfort zone, our environment that we actually in, then we get to believing and getting things in our head that, of course, we don't actually fit in. So that is a problem with high standards, right? And if there's a small population of people that actually fit in these high standards, it means that most of the people who actually believe that they belong there don't belong. And that's kind of the issue. All right. Let's get into the next video.
Loneliness like such a risky lens to date through?
Because when we're lonely, we're not looking for the right person. We are looking for any person to take the edge off. Loneliness creates such urgency. It distorts your instincts. Suddenly you're more focused on not being alone than on who you're actually with. And that's when you can confuse comfort for compatibility. You can mistake love for relief. And those decisions rarely age well. And it's not the criteria. When you're competing with a sense of loneliness, the whole way in which you view the world begins to shift.
Now, she was talking about a whole idea of being lonely, right? And I know you're thinking, how does this kind of relate to having high standards, right? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the issue is when you have high standards, more than likely you are going to be lonely, right? Because most people are not going to meet your high standards, right? And the people that actually meet your high standards, guess what? They're going to have a multitude of options. And that is always the issue. And this is what I need women to really understand this, right? When you going after the same type of men, group of men that most women are going after, you're not going to have them to yourself. Okay. There's a plethora of men that you can have to yourself, but you think they are beneath you because of your high standards. And that is the issue. And that is what keeping you single, because you think that, well, it's settling. No, you are delusional because you're thinking that there's a certain most men that cannot meet your standard, your level. But no, you are on that level. You're average. Most people are average. I don't know how many times this has to be said. Okay. But unfortunately, a lot of women want the men with money, the men with resources, right? But of course, you have to understand supply and demand. We're going to get there. All right. Let's get to our next video.
Real connection, but you're scared to get hurt. So you protect yourself by making long lists of traits you want in a partner, or by shutting people out the second you feel vulnerable. It feels like you're being discerning, but really it's a survival pattern, and it's keeping you from the love you're craving. What changes everything is vision. When you have a clear vision of the kind of relationship you're ready to receive yourself, you can start embodying the qualities of that love that reflect the vision: trust, play, honesty, intimacy. And this is when you stop settling and start attracting healthy, aligned relationships. This is exactly the kind of work we practice in my membership community. So if you're ready to build the relationships,
I agree with her. What it's really fear based, right? Particularly when it comes to women, right? I'm not saying men, of course, have standards too, but it's more so based off of their structure, their discipline, and how they live their life, right? There's a difference from men. Women, when it comes to their standards, the whole idea of yes, they want to be protected, they want to be provided for, but they're seeking a lifestyle. That's essentially what they're seeking, right? But it's also out of fear because, like, they knew how a lot of women know how they grew up, right? And they didn't have a man, particularly their father, to protect them financially, right? So, yes, when seeking a partner, they have all these high expectations and standards, and unfortunately, a lot of times when a person has standards, is very ego driven, is very materialistic, right? So why do you think so many of these relationships actually don't last the long haul, right? So that's one thing you got to understand is that unfortunately we put character, values, and someone of moral integrity, we put those things in the back seat, even though we say we put those in the front, but we don't. We put money and materialism in front of all that stuff, and that's kind of where we at. All right, I got one last video for you. We'll wrap this up. All right.
One thing I was thinking about is how here in the West, especially, a lot of men and a lot of women, even the average man and the average woman, have a very distorted understanding of what type of man or woman they should be seeking. Now, for ladies, they are looking at all these guys that are doing all these outrageous things, spending a lot of money on their ladies, and they assume that they should have that as well. And there are a lot of guys that look at maybe pornographic material, or they're looking at Instagram models, and they assume that they deserve to have a woman like that. And so you have men and women adopting these philosophies that are unrealistic because often they don't qualify to have somebody like that to begin with. You know, a lot of us are just ordinary people, but we all have this distorted view, and it hurts us because we overlook a lot of the people that might be right in front of us that we have access to, that are a great fit, that may be even interested, but we overlook them because we're looking at unrealistic people.
And he's on the money with that, right? Because, and this is, I already mentioned it, this is the doing and the workings of social media, right? Of television, movies, right? Because one thing we got to understand is like everything influences us, literally everything, right? Because we have to be real. Most people don't read like that. Right. So most people are visual, all right? So they get things from the videos that they watch, the movies that they watch, the TV that they watch. This is what they're consuming on a day-to-day basis. So when you hearing all these people talking about dating, and if you're a woman, you're hearing all these women saying you got to pay this, you got to do this for me, you got to take me this place on a date and things of that nature. Of course, it's going to get in a lot of women's head, and vice versa for men. When you see these IG models and you see these beautiful women, of course, like if you're a man that particularly are rising when it comes to income, then you're going to think that's what I want, right? So a lot of people are, yes, programmed, right? That, and I'm not saying this is not actually what they want. What I'm saying is that everybody is wanting the same thing. So what that means is there's scarcity, right? So if a lot of people are wanting the same thing, a lot of people are not going to be able to get it. I.e., why you have a lot of people that's single. All right. We're gonna end the video on that. Hey man, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel, man. We're growing. I appreciate y'all that's rocking with me. I drop 3 videos a week, so check them out. We have plenty of videos for you to definitely check out and comment on, man. But y'all know I rock it with you. I appreciate you. But as always, I'm you, you're me. Love always, love return. Remember, worst thing you do is lie to yourself. And we out. Deuces. One love.